I guess screens on the case, maybe inside the case, are a new thing. I know that people have been doing this for quite some time now, placing HD screen inside their case and placing the thermals inside. But here we have all in one, I would say. Now, this is JONSBO D41 MESH SCREEN, which, as the title and the name says, it comes with a screen right here on front. And the cool thing about it, the resolution is 1280 x 800, and you can actually do quite nice things. For instance, you can place a really detailed specifications and thermals and everything else that you desire on the screen on front, but the thing is you do need to have templates. Of course, you're using AIDA64 to grab something like this, and the cool thing about it, you can design it by yourself, which is outstanding, of course. Now, before we go into all the details about the case, including the interior thermals and of course the screen, let's check out the intro. So first of all, you would be surprised what you can place inside this case. And I'm not saying this because it's a normal case and you can really do wonders. The thing is, the case is quite smaller than your average MIDI tower, and it can really pack a punch with possibilities that you can accommodate inside. So let's start with the radiators, of course. First of all, on top you can place a 360 as I did. And that's outstanding. At the bottom you have a possibility to place two 140 or two 120 with the hard drive cage that supports two 3.5-inch hard drives. But if for some reason you don't need hard drives, which most of us don't and are using either M.2 or 2.5-inch SSDs, you have possibility to place two 2.5-inch SSDs at the back. So that's, let's say, solved. You can remove the hard drive cage and get an access to a 360 radiator or three 120 fans. This is outstanding because if you somehow manage to go with a custom loop inside this case, it can be quite nicely cooled with two 360 radiators. Now, this case supports ATX, micro ATX and mini ITX motherboards, which gives you plenty of room for organization of everything. At the back, you would be surprised when you open it and you see, oh man, there's not enough space for cable management, because behind the motherboard you literally don't have any space. But you don't have to worry, as we're used to JONSBO doing everything perfect by the inch. They did here as well. So you have a canal going here on top at the back for EPS cable, and you can reroute it quite nicely, tied up with zip ties or anything, Velcro ties or anything that you come up with, so it doesn't hit the side panels, well, the side panel at the back. And on the far right side, you have quite nice space to reorganize all the cables that are coming either from the fans, from the AIO, from the fans at the rear, since I don't have any right here because the tubes are running here. And the thing is, this is the only way that you can place a 360, because right here on the front we have a power supply. This is how they managed to create this kind of case. Now, what I did and my configuration currently in this build is a 360 radiator on top, and I placed two 120. I wanted to go with 140 at the bottom as an intake because it is a chimney effect case. I unfortunately totally mistook the fans that I grabbed and I thought they were 140. But then again, I just went with those, and just to see the thermals, if you, for instance, don't have a 140, it's better to know thermals in, let's say, lower ranged fans in terms of RPMs, in terms of CFM, in terms of everything else. And I was quite surprised, to be honest. Now, as you can see, we have AIDA running on front, so I actually used that screen to grab the thermals directly from the AIDA and directly from the system stability test of AIDA 64, just out of the kicks, just to see how it works. So, the processor, and I know, as said, I'll be using the AM5 from the day they launched, but I decided to go 5600G this time just because I had everything prepared. And basically now you can compare it to the past cases that I reviewed because I have loads of information about it. Now this case with the 360 radiator 5600G, we have thermals going up to 63 Celsius degrees, which I would say is outstanding. Without doubt, 100% load, CPU, FPU, cache and system memory ticked, and the GPU went up to 60, maybe touched 61 degrees Celsius. That's all. So the two fans at the bottom are creating an intake because it's, I would say, risen from the table by 1 centimeter. This should give enough intake from the bottom to create that chimney effect. Pushes the fresh air from the bottom directly to the GPU, and everything else that isn't collected with the fans from the GPU goes straight up to the radiator. Outstanding, right? Now you would be concerned maybe with that 1 centimeter of space here at the bottom, but basically what you have is 1 centimeter all around of empty space, and this is where the fans collect all the air to push it through the case. Outstanding. Yeah, it's simple. So you don't worry about the airflow and the dust filters. At the bottom you have a huge magnetic dust filter which is easily removable, and this gives you an opportunity to flip the case and place the radiator specifically for custom liquid cooling, because in AIO you won't be placing a radiator at the bottom, of course, because of the physics and how the bubbles and the air inside the closed loop goes. The closed loop will have air at the toppest point, unless the pump is in the radiator, then you can manage that, but it could affect the cooling in terms of air being inside the CPU block. So there's pros and cons and everything, but I wouldn't suggest placing radiator here at the bottom. At the top, on the other hand, even though I stated that it can go with 360, you can also go with 240 and 280, and you have loads of space, and you can even manage the cables. So they really did outstanding stuff. Now when we're talking about the screen, as already stated, the resolution 1280 x 800. And for the templates, you can either go to AIDA 64 forum and you can download it there, because loads of guys are doing their custom templates which you can download and then edit it through the sensor panel manager, which gives you an opportunity to adjust it just as you wish. Of course, there's also tweaking around it, and actually it took me about 3 hours to find a perfect one to adjust it to my settings and everything else. So these templates that I've shown you in this video are taken from that forum, and I'll place the link for AIDA 64 just for reference, so you guys know this isn't my template. And that's it, just so you know. But when we're talking in general about the case, you can even remove the screen. And this is quite cool because you can place the screen on the side on your table if that's more suitable for you, and place a meshed front part instead of the screen, because they thought of everything, of course. This is outstanding. Now when we're talking about connectivity, you have two cables running out of the screen, and it's fairly easy. You just connect the Type-C and the mini HDMI, if I'm not mistaken, directly to the screen. You have a hole coming up from the top, and you reroute the cable through that cable management canal, let's put it that way, directly here behind the fans, and you get a PCI slot right here with two cutouts just for those cables. Now my suggestion, and basically if you don't have an integrated graphic card for your processor, I would suggest connecting the HDMI directly to your graphic card, and the Type-C, of course, directly to your motherboard. This is how it powers up, and this is how you get a signal and actually the screen working. There's no installation required, you just need to detect it in your Windows, adjust the position, because first when I powered on the PC for the first time, the screen was in vertical position. So you do need to flip it horizontally, and then you can adjust literally everything. Of course, it can be used for additional screens, such as, I don't know, maybe you can use some other indication of thermals, maybe use it as a wallpaper in terms of some active, how would I say, active wallpaper, let's put it that way. Or you could just place any animation on it because it's a regular screen in terms of just like a monitor, except it's 60 Hertz, and of course you're not going to game on it, but you could, you know, adjust it to your liking. It doesn't have to be thermals, it doesn't have to be AIDA 64. You can do really wonders. So I'm really liking the design. The only thing that it's unfortunate, and when you actually remove this hard drive cage, you have a possibility to place one 120 fan at the front. Now I was thinking why there isn't a possibility for two 120 at the front. And I totally forgot about the power supply. So yeah, basically when you remove the hard drive cage, you get an opening for 4 holes for the 120 fan, but that's it. You can't place anything else above it because the power supply is occupying that space. And you do need some space for the cables and cable management. Now, when we're talking about that space again, I do have to say I used cable mods extenders, and as you can see, I managed to do a cable management right here. And this is a fairly long power supply, so we have 17 centimeters Seasonic power supply. You could go with 15 centimeters and then get a bit more space, because I was thinking of placing the RTX 3070 Supreme X, but the power supply is getting in the way. If I used a 15 centimeter power supply, because you can go even with SFX and get more space even around the power supply and then manage the cables even better. So what I was trying to say is that 3070 Supreme X, which is quite long and actually it has 1 centimeter in the power supply, which didn't fit, you can basically place it like so and you would have quite long graphic card. So when we're talking about the length of the GPU, if you manage the power supply, for instance SFX or a 15 centimeter ATX power supply, you can go up to 34 centimeters of GPU. And that's outstanding, because you do have to be careful though, because the GPU is actually going right beneath the power supply. But for instance, if you can't manage, or you already have a power supply that is above 15 centimeters, or you don't have an SFX power supply, you can go up to 31.5 centimeters of GPU length, which is still cool, because right here I'm running the Sapphire RX 6650 XT Nitro Plus, and basically you have loads of space right here. The cable is going like so because they didn't manage to fit an opening beneath the ATX motherboard. So the cable for the GPU needs to go on the side. This might be a problem for the RTX 4000 series and all the commotion going about the cable and not plugging it properly, or at least has to be straight for at least 2.5 centimeters, but that's a story for something else. But just want to mention everything that you need to know. Now for the CPU tower cooler, you can go up to 165 millimeters of height, and basically that covers almost all CPU tower coolers, which is also outstanding, I would say. So in terms of that, you can go with fairly long power supply, because you have 6.5 centimeters of clearance to add on that 17 centimeters of Seasonic power supply. But then again, you do need to take into consideration that cables do need to run out of the power supply. So yeah, but all in all, what I can conclude from this case, it can be done perfectly. When we're talking about cable management, you can really do outstanding things in terms of reorganizing the back, as you saw, right? The airflow is quite outstanding, and even with the cases that I reviewed with front mesh 3 120mm fans, smaller AIOs, or even the same size but thicker, the temperature on AMD Ryzen 5 5600G was literally around 1 degrees Celsius above or below, depending on the AIO, of course. But standard MIDI tower, which is much higher, had the same temperatures. The GPU didn't change at all. Maybe it went in some cases up to 62 degrees, but that's all there is to it. Cage for two 3.5-inch hard drives, which is easily removable, and basically It gives you an opportunity to either place a 360 radiator for a custom liquid cooling system, or at the back you have the possibility to place two 2.5-inch SSDs. On the M.2, I don't have to mention anything because you're placing them on the motherboard. The power supply, as already stated, I'm not going to go into details. And of course, finally, you do have a cool screen right here on the front, which honestly, it's a really nice touch. They designed this case really nicely in terms of the visual aspects, perforated top and the front part with openings so you can get a breathable case, let's put it that way. You could place 120 at the back if you push the radiator a bit more further, but since I was doing everything and managing it like so, I left it without 120 at the back. Maybe it could create additional intake if you flip the fan, which will generate more intake for the radiator on top. But all in all, I'm, as always with JONSBO, really satisfied. And placing a screen on the case which is modified, which can be modified to your liking, and basically it's acting as a second monitor to your whole system. So I would say big thumbs up again for JONSBO. I have really no words. It's always a nice surprise to work with their cases and their products in general, which even though I'm expecting always something really nice, it always surprises me even more. So it's not that it deserves a creative badge because some of you guys that are modders or modding your case in your free spare time as a hobby, you placed a screen inside or outside of the case already a couple of times, right? So I'll just give it a PC Crazy approved badge because they implemented the screen perfectly. You just pop it up with pegs if you decide to place it on the table, and you can place a meshed front, the same design as this front. That's all. I have no words. That's simply what it is. And I think comparing the comments and everything that I read on the past JONSBO products, I think you'll be hitting those likes and comments the same way as on all other JONSBO products I reviewed so far. So in that terms, don't forget to subscribe, because hopefully more JONSBO products will be arriving in some time period, which I will be doing with most pleasure, without a doubt. So without further ado, just to recap, don't forget to sub, like, and hit the notification bell. I know you love this case, so check out the link below, and that's all there is to it. Thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully I will see you in another video. Bye bye.